There's a very fascinating Gemara that always intrigued me, and I never got clarity about it until I started preparing the shir. And I think that I want to go through it with you, and it'll give us some enlightenment. Whenever there's a simcha, right? Whenever there's a simcha, so what do you say? Mazal tov. Mazal tov. What is this Mazal tov? What's this Mazal tov? You know, what are you saying? And people translate it wrong. You know, the English translation of Mazal tov is good luck. You know, it's not good luck. We'll discuss good luck in a second. But there's a Gemara, a famous Gemara in Tainis, Elazar ben Pados. Now, first we have to know who Elazar ben Pados was. Elazar ben Pados was second in command in Eretz Yisrael. There were three great Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael at that time, at the beginning of the time of the Amoraim, after Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. They were Talmidim of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. There was Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, who was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan. There was Reish Lakish and Elazar ben Pados. After the Reish Lakish passed away, he was the Chavrus of Rabbi Yochanan. They're always fighting each other. And after he passed away, so Elazar ben Pados became the Chavrus of Rabbi Yochanan. And he was called the Mara Da'ari Yisrael. That means he was the Gadol Hador. He was the Poisek Hador. Mara Da'ari Yisrael. That was Rabbi Elazar ben Pados. Now, Elazar ben Pados, don't think that just because he was Mara Da'ari Yisrael, he was the Gadol Hador, therefore, you know, all of a sudden people started pouring in, gifts and everything, and he became an usher. He was an ani shabaniyim. He had nothing. That's who he was. He was an ani. He was the Gadol Hador, and he had nothing. He was total poverty. The chike le milsa. It was very, very bad for him. So in those days there was a remedy whenever if you got high blood pressure or whatever, so they did bloodletting. They thought that would be a remedy for high blood pressure. But after you do bloodletting, so you have to eat something. So he did. Ovid Milsa, he did, but he didn't have anything to eat. He went home and he didn't have anything to eat. All he had was one little clove of garlic. So he took a bite out of the clove of garlic and he fainted. The Rabbanan heard, the Gadol Hador fainted. He's out. He's out cold. They were afraid he's going to pass away. So they all ran to find out what's going on. Azar Rabbanan l'shiur lebei, and they saw he was crying. He was in a faint. They saw him cry, and then he laughed, and then a spark came out of his forehead. A spark of fire came out of his forehead. Then he woke up. So they asked him, "Why'd you laugh? And why'd you cry?" So he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting next to me. Agavorcha, this shows you who he was. None of us here get to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting next to us being Mavakar Cholim. He was in a faint, and who was Mavakar Cholim? HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoida bi'atzmo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting there. So I said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ad Mosai etzdayir b'hai alma. How much longer am I going to suffer in this world? So it says, Elazar b'ni, my son Elazar, Nichala, do you want that I should turn the whole world over back to Maisa Bereshis? Ulai, demisyaldis b'shaita demizayni. Maybe you'll be reborn in a time of ashiris, of mezainis. You'll have a good parnasa. So Elazar ben Pados said to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Kuli haiva ulai. It's a famous statement. Kuli haiva ulai. All of that, you have to turn the whole world over back to Maisa Bereshis, destroy the world and rebuild it. And maybe I'll be born into a Mazal of a parnasa. So he asked him, have I lived most of my life, or has most of my life gone? Have I lived most of my life, or do I still have most of my life to live? So he says, you've already lived most of your life. So he says, if that's the case, I don't want.
Over the hill.
If that's the case, I don't want. Now, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, because you accepted the Gezerah, because you said this, in that schar, I'm going to give you in the next world 13 rivers of balsam oil, afarsamon, mishchida afarsamon, oil shemen afarsamon, very, very fine. It's a mushal for enjoyment. It was something they used for enjoyment. So it's a mushal, but it's going to have 13 rivers of this balsam oil.
13 jacuzzis.
Yeah, yeah, right. As schar, and they're going to be as wide as the Poras Vidiklas, the Euphrates, the Tigris and Euphrates. Those are the famous rivers in those days, the Tigris and Euphrates. And you're going to be able to enjoy Olam Haba. It's going to be fantastic. So he says, that's all? That's all you're going to give me? So the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, and l'chavrach, but what about for the rest of the Chabura? You're a member of the Talmidei Chachamim. All the other Talmidei Chachamim, l'chavrach, what you got to leave over something for them. So he says, am I asking from someone who doesn't have that he's going to be chosser if he gives me? Kodesh Baruch Hu, you've got enough for everybody. There's no limit. It's unlimited schar. So that's all you're going to give me? So Kodesh Baruch Hu laughed, and he gave him a flick on his forehead. Wow, that was fantastic. Well, he enjoyed his his comeback. What he said. So Kodesh Baruch Hu said, Eliezer, I'm throwing arrows at you. I enjoy you so much. Geschmack. So Rashi says, when he cried, it was because he had just been told by Kodesh Baruch Hu he's lived most of his life. He doesn't have that much left. And he laughed because he heard about the schar that he's going to be getting. The 13 rivers of farsamon, and the spark of light that came out of his forehead was when a Kodesh Baruch Hu flicked him on the forehead out of joy, and therefore a spark of light came out of his forehead. Everybody asked the question on this Gemara. This is a very famous Gemara, and people ask the famous question. People have a bad mazel. People don't have parnasa. I won't mention any names, but I'm sure that everybody has schwerkeit, has difficulties in parnasa, right? And what do they all tell you? Daven. We have to daven for parnasa. Baruch Aleinu is give Kodesh Baruch Hu should give me parnasa. Atahu Elokeinu. We say in Shema Koleinu. So we have all sorts of tefillahs for parnasa. We have all sorts of schools for parnasa. You can't daven. A Kodesh Baruch Hu couldn't change it. He's begging a Kodesh Baruch Hu, how much longer do I have to live in poverty? And a Kodesh Baruch Hu he's got to turn the whole world over, destroy the whole world, and in order to give him some parnasa, the Kodesh Baruch Hu lacks anything. He lacks anything. He can't just make a couple of adjustments and then give him some parnasa. This is the question that Tosfos asks. Tosfos asks, what we see from here that for Eliezer ben Bedos, it wasn't possible to change anything. So let's try to understand what's going on over here. This is what the Meforshim struggle with the Rebbe Eliezer ben Bedos. Where is this concept of Mazal? What is Mazal? So there's Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Vav, very famous Gemara in Kuf Nun Vav. it says that there's machloikis. Rabbi Chanina says, Chochma, Mazal Machkim. If you're born, some people are born smart, and some people are born smarter, right? Not so smart. So some people, Machkim. Mazal is Machkim. Mazal is Mashir. Having riches, being, rich, like Rockefeller, or he's a guy, Ruby Schroen, rich, or Tenenbaum, the famous Rothschild, the famous Ashirim that we have. It's all a mazel. It's a mazel that you become rich. V'yesh mazel Yisrael. Mazel controls Klal Yisrael. What does that mean, the yesh mazel Yisrael? So Rashi says, mazel is something that tefillah will not and won't work. It can't change it. Yesh mazel Yisrael, tefillah and stalker. You give stalker. Stalker changes things. You give stalker and it changes your mazel. So no, it's not true. According to Rabbi Chanina, it's not mishana the mazel. Ain't tefillah u'tzedakah mishana is the mazel. Along comes Rabbi Yochanan. He says, ain't mazel Yisrael. Yisrael, we have no mazel. We don't have mazel. Rabbi Yochanan goes to the Taimei. He says, Rabbi Yochanan Menayan, there's no mazel Yisrael. He brings a raya. What does it mean, ain't mazel Yisrael? So Rashi says, because through tefillah and schus, you can change the mazel. Agavorcha, we see from Rashi, ein mazel Yisrael, yesh mazel Yisrael. We paskin ein mazel Yisrael. That seems to be, it's a machlokes. It's not so clear, but l'chayra, if you look in the sources that I've seen, we paskin ein mazel Yisrael. Everybody, says ein mazel. It doesn't mean there's no mazel. It says there is a mazel. We have to understand what mazel is. But mazel is mishtana al yedei tefillah and schus l'toiva. You can change it. It's possible to change the mazel. How do we know? How do we know there's ein mazel Yisrael? It comes from Avram Avinu. What does it mean ein mazel Yisrael? There is such a thing as mazel. What is mazel? The mazolos. We know what the word mazolos means, the constellations. So, everybody poo-poos the concept of astrology. Happens to be the Gemara brings down astrology. Astrology is a real thing. Now, I'm not saying that the astrologists in the newspapers are, doing anything, they know anything. Could be they're dingbats. I don't give them much credit, but there was a time that people understood astrology very well. Haman understood astrology. That's why the Purim story. He played the cards in such a way that he figured out that Adar was the month to try to get Klal Yisrael. So he understood the astrology of Klal Yisrael. But Kosh Baruch Hu lifted up Klal Yisrael above the mazel. In other words, it was a mazel that we should have been annihilated in Adar by Haman, but Kosh Baruch Hu lifted us up above the mazel that he had no control over it. No control over us. Where do we see this? From Avram Avinu. What is mazel? What does the word mazel mean? So there's Rav Dessler, he brings from the Radak, he says, the word mazel comes from nozel. Mazel comes from nozel. It flows down. It's set. Our mazel, or a person's mazel, or the Klal Yisrael's mazel, whatever the mazel is, a person's mazel is set. From Maisa Bereshis, it's set what his mazel is, and this influences, like the influence of this mazel flows down into this world from up on high, from Olam Haba, it flows down to Olam Hazeh, and it influences everything about his life. That's what mazel is. It's a nozel. It's a nozel. Where do we get this from? We got it from Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was told by Kodesh Baruch Hu, you're going to have a son. He says, no, I looked in the stars. Histakalti be'astigninos. Avram Avinu knew astrology. He looked in the stars, in the constellations, in the mazolos, and I said, Avram can't give birth. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, say mi astigninos shelcha. Go out of your Mazal, out of your constellations. Ein Mazal Yisrael. It says, he lifted him up. He lifted him up. Habeitno. Habeitno ala shemayim. The word habeit means look down. The word habeit, tistakel, is to look up. Tireh is look up. Habeit is to look down. So Kodesh Baruch Hu said by Avram Avinu, look down. He lifted him up above the mazolas, and he says, Ein Mazal Yisrael. Avram won't give birth. I'm changing the name to Avraham, and Avraham will have children. That's where we got it from. When Kodesh Baruch Hu chose Avram Avinu, and when he chose Klal Yisrael, he lifted us up above the mazolas. Now the chiddush is, Ein Mazal Yisrael doesn't mean that he's totally ignores the powers of the Mazal. It means that he lifted us up and we can control the Mazal, either through Tefillah or through Schos.
Mazal is part of the Teva, part of nature, or it's nothing to do with nature?
So that's the difference between us, Yidden, and the Goyim. What do Goyim say? The Goyim will say, one second.
Mazal Tov is good flow.
Yeah.
Good flow. Good vibes.
One second. Oh, here it is. Here.
Good vibes.
You see some people, they just have good luck. You see some people, they just have good luck. What do Goyim call Mazal? They call it luck. It's good luck. It's good luck. And you see sometimes people just have good luck, and a fantastic story, an example of this is a story by Mark Twain called Luck. Mark Twain says that he was at a banquet, and it was in London, and they were honoring three very high-ranking British officers, and one of them was a Lieutenant General Lord Arthur Scoresby, and he was getting, he was getting honored, and came in with his uniform, and he had medals all over the place. I mean, it was just his uniform was just decorated with decorations of medals and medals. He was like glowing and fantastic, and he was a very famous person. He had won so many battles. And Mark Twain had been following the news, and he was very honored that he was able to be at the banquet honoring this Lord General Arthur Scoresby. And he's sitting there, and there was a friend of his who is now a clergyman. He had been a teacher, a military teacher earlier in his life, and now he was a clergyman. And he was sitting next to Mark Twain, and he was just shaking his head. And he was shaking his head, and he whispered, Mark, between you and me, this guy's an absolute fool. He's an absolute fool. He's a dodo bird. What's he talking about? I mean, he's the most decorated general in the British Army, and so he was very surprised. So a few days later, he had the opportunity to meet this old friend of his, and he asked him, what's going on? What did he mean by that statement? He says, 40 years ago, I was an instructor in the military academy at Woolwich. I guess that was Woolwich. That was what's the
West Point.
West Point. That's the West Point of the British Army, I guess, right? It's the West Point of the British Army, Woolwich. And this young Scoresby, right? And he was given a preliminary examination, and he didn't have the common sense to keep his mouth shut. He just blurted out the most ridiculous answers they were miraculous for stupidity and ignorance.
Sounds like a great general, amazing.
So this teacher, he had Rahmanis on. The finals, throughout it, just the whole semester, he was like, he knew nothing. He was thick, nothing, and it was such Rahmanis. It was and then they got to the finals, and like, and he's going to get geschmettert totally. So he had Rachmanis on him. So there were two final, one in history, white, flattened. He's going to get flattened, right?
That's a nicer word.
In England they say obliterated.
So he had an idea what questions for history. So he drilled him on Julius Caesar, in and out, everything about Julius Caesar. He just had an inkling. He knew what kind of questions that they ask. He knew what kind of questions they ask, and so he told him everything about Julius Caesar, and he didn't know anything else, just Julius Caesar. And his luck, what were the questions they asked? Julius Caesar. He passed with flying colors. It was amazing examination, and he knew 1,000 times better than everybody else. No, it was totally amazing. All right, next. A couple of days later was the mathematics examination, the finals in mathematics. So he knew nothing. So this teacher, he drilled him in a few questions that he had an inkling. Again, from his experience, this is probably what he knew that these are the type of questions that. what they're going to ask him, and they asked him exactly this question. And he got flying colors, and and just from this being crammed, and he took first prize of everybody who in that class who took the examination. Now this teacher he started, gulping, joking. He says he's now going to become an officer in the army. Hashem Yerachem, he passed too good. How could that be? Now it's on his head that everything that's going to happen now, because of this guy's is in office in the army. So he was in the military. He's a military teacher, and he was also in the military. Then broke out the Crimean War. There was a war in Crimea between the Allies, the British on one side and the Russians on the other side about Crimea. I don't know the history of it, but I just know it was Britain and Russia in Crimea. And this Woodenhead, he got a whole bunch of glittering promotions and prodigious responsibilities, and he was put in charge of a regiment. And so this teacher made sure he got assigned to the same regiment. He was trying to keep eyes on him, what's going to be. And he misunderstood all the orders he was given. He made one mistake after another. And every mistake that he made turned out to be gold. He was matzliach in everything that he did. It turned out the opposite of what should have been from his decision. The cream of this whole story was that they were now being geschmettert, being flattened, very obliterated by the Russians. Right? The Russians were outmaneuvering them, the British, and they were trying to hold on to their formation. And the Russians were very, very smart, and they had very, very good strategies. And he was sent orders: come back and go to the right, and join the main flanks, because we're going to try to outflank the Russians. He decided on his own, no, he knows better. He's going to go to the left. And he went charging with his small regiment, just had a small regiment. He went charging over the hill. Right? What a dumb thing to do. He's going to get... Right? And all of a sudden he comes over the hill, and they come in contact, they see a giant regiment of Russian soldiers that were waiting in ambush to outflank the British, and they were caught by surprise, and they see this small platoon of British coming over the hill, and they said, the British are not stupid to send a small platoon after the whole Russian army. There must be more behind the hill. They started running, and they made a fast retreat. It was like in a helter-skelter. The whole Russian regiment, they lost formation. They ran into the Russian, the whole Russian regiment, the Russian encampment, and they made heyday. It was crazy. There was a whole big, everything was topsy-turvy, and the British, they're able to take advantage of it, and the British won the war because of Scoresby, right? Scoresby. He came up with such a brilliant maneuver. Says Mark Twain, that's luck. Says Mark Twain, that's luck. That is the epitome of good luck. Along comes Rav Dessler. Havdil. Where's Rav Dessler? Here's Rav Dessler.
I forgot that when the Syrians came through in Yom Kippur, and they said, what's going on here?
There's got to be a trap because nobody was fighting them, so they
went back.
they turned around. Yeah.
Rebbe, you were here, right? You were
Yeah. Yom Kippur War. Mazal means nozel. When a Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, when a Kodesh Baruch Hu created all the neshamas, when a Kodesh Baruch Hu created all the neshamas, there's a Gemara. There's a Gemara in. It's a Medrash Rabbah and Kisisa. Adam Arishon, all of our neshamas are totally, we're from Adam Arishon, he was koilel all the neshamas. We don't understand it, but all the neshamas that ever existed, billions, trillions of people, everybody, Yidden, Goyim, we were all a part of Adam Arishon. That's how great it was, his neshama. And then it split when he at the Chet, and then all the neshamas split, and the Yetzer Hara, the Samamovis, he took, Sam, Uncle Sam, we call him. So he took a whole bunch of neshamas captive, and we have all the Rishoyim, and some of them became, and then the Yidden we're supposed to do a tikkun. Our job is to do a tikkun on the neshamas that were Adam Rishon ruined by the Chet. But all the neshamas were in Adam Rishon. Now every nitzuts, every little neshama, part of neshama, they had a different tafkid. They said they were Tully, where? Tully in his head, thinking. Some were Tully in his hair. Some were Tully in his metzach, or his eyes, his chaitim, his mouth, his ears, right? In his chest, his arms, right? All the neshamas were all Tully in different parts of, and that is the blueprint of what the neshama's job is, to be misakin certain things. We don't understand what the hair is, but hair, there's certain tikkun the hair needs, certain tikkun the eyes need, certain tikkun right? Too bad they can't see you. But anyway, can imagine, right? That's why Rabbi Kiva's son was called Yeshua ben Korcha, Yeshua, the son of the baldy. The bald man, because that means Rabbi Kiva was bald. So you're in good company.
And Elisha Hanavi also.
Elisha also was bald?
Yeah, we
okay.
got more sensitive.
So
Bears. Yeah.
So everybody was given a certain format, and in this format, or his being, whatever his job is, everybody has a job, and according to that job, that's what his whole life is now set. His whole basic life is set. Whether he's going to be rich, he's going to be born to the rich, because he's got to do a tikkun as a rich person, or he's going to be poor, or he's going to be smart, or he's going to be not so smart, right? So all these things are in the Mazal. These are all set. This is just like this teva, just like there's laws of nature. We have laws of nature in the Gashmias world, in Olam Hazeh. So in the Ruchnius world, there's also laws of nature. This is the Mazal. This is how it's set. These are the rules, the format, the basis, the foundation of how everything is now set. Now, is it possible to change the mazel? Well, that's the machloikas. Yesh Mazal Yisrael, Ein Mazal Yisrael. Al Gavorcha, he brings on the bottom. What does it mean by when we say Mazel Tov? Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. What is Mazel Tov? Good luck? No. Mazel Tov is a tefillah that now things are good for you. Obviously, when things are happy now. Mazel Tov, that you should be zoicha, that this mazel should continue. It should be a Mazel Tov, and it should be a continuous Mazel Tov. Your mazel now is showing signs of good things happening. That's the idea of a Mazel Tov.
Or that the event turn out to be a good event.
Sorry?
Or that the event, when you say Mazal Tov.
The event should come out good, yes? Right, it's a
You
tefillah.
say Mazal Tov on when you get divorced. You say Mazal Tov. Somebody gets divorced. When they sign the get, they say Mazal Tov.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never been at one of those. Okay, yeah. There's definitely, if it's a minik Yisrael, there's definitely something to it. So Reb Dessler says, I told you there's machlokes Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan whether the Yesh Mazal Yisrael, Ein Mazal Yisrael, whether or not you can change it or whether you can't change it. So Reb Dessler, he wants to explain. Everybody tries to explain it, but he wants to explain like this: there's a Mazal Proti and a Mazal. I'm giving it my name: Mazal Klali and a Mazal Proti. What does it mean, a Mazal Proti? Person's born with a certain tafkid. Everybody's born with a tafkid. Everybody has a tafkid. Rosh Hashanah, you're given. You were born into the world to do a certain tafkid in this world. We don't necessarily know what the tafkid is, but people they feel inside that they want to they feel an inclination to do a certain line of action. They're drawn to a certain profession or drawn to certain activities. This is all within the tafkid that they were born with. The person feels it.
Can you just define tafkid, Rebbe? Like
Tafkid, a purpose. Mission. That's very good. Mission.
Calling is what they're going call.
The goal is good. So all these things are true. It's a calling. It's a mission. It's a goal. It's more of a mission. A tafkid is more of a mission. That we have a mission because ultimately, like I said, Adam Arishon, by the chet of Adam Arishon, he created a lot of he created disaster and he broke a lot of the neshamas. And our mission is to fix those neshamas and fix the whole world. The whole world has got to be put back together again. The whole world's got to be put back together again. The whole world originally recognized the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Everybody recognized the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The job of the Yidden is put the world back together again and spread the recognition of a Kodesh Baruch Hu's dominion in Olam Hazeh. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is Echad, right? And that's the job of all the Yidden. So somehow or other we have to work towards that final goal. That's our tafkid. Everybody's got a little tiny tafkid, a tiny mission. Now, in order to do that tiny mission, he gets kalim. You need tools. So the tools could be smart. The tools could be parnosa. The tools could be the ability to sing. All the different the talents that a person has. A talent is a tool that he has to do something good with his life. These are tools. So if that's the mazel is called, I call it mazel proti. He's got a certain mission in life, and his mazel is that he's going to, the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him a mazel of poverty, in order to, because he has a talent to be able to fix the world through poverty. And he's very, very good at it. He davens, but he davens very, very hard, and he wants to get out of his poverty. And Kodesh Baruch Hu said, "Okay, I'm now going to give you the tool of wealth, because you'll have a different way of doing your tafkid in life. Or we'll change the talent, we'll change the environment, we'll change where you live. All these different things can be changed. So that is Ein Mazal Yisrael." That a person can daven and change his mazel. That's on the Mazal Prati. There's something called the Mazal Kloli. I'm going to explain it more than Rav Dessler, more like the Nesivos. Nesivos Amishpat is the Derech HaChaim, Rav Emes Yaakov from Lita.
Who was that?
He was a great posek.
Not the current, he was not like the Slonim Rebbe. you're talking
No.
This is Mishnah.
No. He lived
200 years ago.
He lived at least 250 years ago. 200 years ago. So he's one of the greatest. One of the greats. Elazar ben Pados. There are some people. Their job, their tafkid, their mission is such an intrinsic part of the bria, of the creation. It's not just they have a mazel and they have a personality and they have a mazel. Their whole situation is intrinsic in the whole bria. When Elazar ben Pados sitting next to Akash Baruch came to Mavaka Cholim and he davened to Akash Baruch, maybe change my mazel, change my situation. I can't handle the poverty anymore. So Akash Baruch says, to change your mazel, it's not enough schuyos. You can't have a schus is not going to do it. We say staka tatzami movis, right? Staka helps to change the mazel. Davening changed to help the mazel, not by Elazar ben Pados. He was such an intrinsic part of the whole fabric of nature that he had a job of serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu out of poverty, accepting poverty, and he was doing a tikkun, some kind of a tikkun. He was fixing up the world. It was a perfection, perfecting the world through living a life of being the Gadol Hador, living in poverty. And in order to change that, he would have to totally take apart the whole world, put it back together again. Now he's got this neshama called the Elazar ben Pados, and then he have to build the whole world around this neshama called the Elazar ben Pados. Maybe, only maybe, then Elazar ben Pados with his tafkid, with his mission in life, could be born into a mazel of ashiris. But it's only a maybe. It's sort of like, because this tafkid, this mission that he had, if Elazar ben Pados doesn't do it, somebody else got to do it. Now imagine you have a big jigsaw puzzle. We have jigsaw puzzles, 200 pieces, 300 pieces, 1,000 pieces. I don't know, what they got, right? Akash Baruch created the world with a jigsaw puzzle of trillions and trillions of pieces. Now, if you have an important piece, it's a picture of New York City, right? But there's a sun shining bright over New York City. That is a very intrinsic piece of this jigsaw puzzle. A person beat a blade of grass, you move the blade of grass over here and can put a different blade of grass over there. It doesn't really affect the whole jigsaw. But the sun, Elazar ben Pados was like the sun of that giant jigsaw puzzle. So if he take him out, got to put somebody else in there. That means he's got to go over there and take somebody else. But then that tafkid is missing. That there's space over there. And then it's a domino effect. The whole thing comes apart because all the pieces just disintegrate. Because he's such an important, and there's nowhere to put him because you got to put him in a very important part. But in a very important part, so to take Elazar ben Pados out of change his mazel means he's got to take him out, put something else in, and then that's a domino effect. But the whole world's just going to come apart. The whole world's going to come apart. So he said, Elazar, in order to change your mazel, I have to take the whole world apart. Kuli hai va'ulai, all that you have to do, and maybe you can change my mazel? I don't want.
New York by night.
Do
New York by night.
If I'm done with him, I'm done.
This is called a Mazal Kloli. This is called a Mazal Kloli. Where else do we find a Mazal Kloli? We find it by Rav Chanina ben Doisa. Remember Chanina ben Doisa? The famous miracle man. Now he was earlier than Elazar ben Pados. He was a Tana. He was the time of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. Lozman Badas was a chavrusa of Rabbi Yochanan, the Amoira, about 200 years after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was the time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. That's even before Rabbi Akiva. Chanina ben Dosa Chanina ben Dosa B'chol yom v'yom yotze bas kol v'oimer kol ha'olam kulo nizam b'shvil Chanina b'ni. So he was obviously one of these important characters, personalities. The whole world had the schus of Chanina ben Dosa. They got parnasa. And Chanina b'ni dayo b'kav churuvim erev Shabbos over Shabbos. He had nothing to eat except some box of fruit. Some trees grew out, grew in the forest or in his yard, and that's all he had. He had nothing. He had dire poverty. They had nothing. That was his life. That was his life. But you see how important that he was? His wife was very embarrassed by the situation. Now, Erev Shabbos, everybody's baking the challahs for Shabbos, and everybody sees the smoke coming out of the ovens, and she was embarrassed. She couldn't even bake challahs for Shabbos. But she stoked the fire inside the oven, and there was smoke coming out, and because she didn't want, it made believe that she was baking challahs. One of the neighbors got wind of this. She's playing games. I know she doesn't have any challahs. She doesn't have anything in the house. Who is she fooling over here? So the neighbor came barging into the yard and snooping around. Let's see what's in your oven, lady. And Rebbetzin Chanina ben Dosa, she ran into the house. She was in the kitchen. She was like, about to be embarrassed, that there's nothing in the oven. And the neighbor opened up the oven door. Rebbetzin, your challahs are burning. Your challahs are burning. Come quick, get a spatula and take the challahs out of the oven. Yes, that's what I went. I went to the kitchen to get a spatula, to get a baker's shovel, to get the challahs out of the oven. It says that she was prepared for this because she was used to nisim. She was used to nisim, so when she had the quick comeback, right? When the neighbor saw the miracle that the oven was full of challahs, so she immediately chapped what was going on, and she took the challahs out. Yes, I'm coming, and she got the challahs out of the oven. She told her husband, "How long will it be like this? How long? Daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to get us out of this. I can't take it anymore."
How long? She's moving the Benissim. How long?
It's painful. It's painful, but she was Mulama Benisim, but she was still they only had Kav Chruvim, Erev Shabbos, Lev Shabbos. So Chanina ben Dosa, he went and he davened. He was Mulumin in davening, and he davened, and a hand came out of Shemayim, holding the leg of a table made of gold, a gold leg of a table. Oh, so now we can go sell it, right? Go to the pawn shop and have something to buy for Shabbos. That night she had a dream that all the tzaddikim are sitting around tables with 3 legs. 3 legs is the minimum.
4 legs.
No, it was 3 legs. No, he had 2. 3 legs. The tzaddikim live. Al shlosh devarim olam oimed al Torah tefillah gemilas chasadim. Those are 3 legs. Torah, Tefillah, and Gemilas Chasadim. Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim. Those are the 3 legs. Everybody had 3 legs, and he only had 2. He was missing one. So what was Pshat? He was missing one. So she went back to. She told her husband, "You want to go be embarrassed in Olam Haba that everybody's got 3 legs and we've only got 2? Give it back." So he davened to the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu came and took it back. And the Gemara says that the second miracle was bigger than the first miracle because the Kodesh Baruch Hu gives, he doesn't take back. He will give, he won't take back. So the Nesivos, Rav Yaakov Milisa, Rav Yaakov Milisa, so he said, what's pshat over here? Chanina ben Doisa, he was malumit. His davening was renowned. He was renowned for his sympathy for people. He had a heart of gold, and anybody who came, he davened, and he was able to tell, according to if his tefillah was niskabel or not, whether it flowed or not. He had such a heart. Now his heart was so open, so he couldn't be given a shiris, because that would not be a nesoyin for him. That would not be a tafkid for him. Because if he would be given a shiris, he would just give all his money away. Just give all his money away. That's no kunz. For a person with an open heart, that's no kunz. What's the kunz? A person who's got a hard heart, and afal pikein he gives tzedakah. That's it. According to the nesoyin, there be no nesoyin. So Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't give him that nesoyin of a shiris, because that wouldn't be a nesoyin. He had a nesoyin of poverty, and afal pikein, he was good to people, and he did tzedakah as much as he could, and he got the schus of tzedakah, more than people who are shirim. So we see that because of his etzem, he was in the fabric of creation. We needed a Chanina ben Doisa, and if he would have to change that Mazal, it would have been bad for Chanina ben Doisa, and it would have been bad for the whole world. The whole world was nizon because of the poverty of Chanina ben Doisa. If he would have lost his poverty, the whole world wouldn't have had a schus for kiyum. Things that happen to us, we don't know why they happen. There's a Mazal Kloli and a Mazal Proti. There's this type of Mazal and that type. But whatever happens, we have to know that a Kodesh Baruch Hu is running the show. Everything is from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. There's a story. This is fresh off the press. There's a Rosh Hashiva in Lakewood called Urin Reich. Urin Reich is a Rosh Hashiva in Lakewood, and he was a sandik at a bris, and he gave a drasha, and he talked about his grandfather. His grandfather was Rav Shlomo Zalman Pinas. And he lived in Minsk, and he was a big Talmid Chacham. Tarasav Gudulasav b'Makom Echad. He was a big Talmid Chacham and an Oshir Otzum. He was the grandfather of Urin Reich, and he says his grandmother used to tell the kids about when they were in Minsk, they ate off of, on the Shabbos table, it wasn't silver. You know, we have stainless steel. They didn't eat off of silver cutlery. They had gold cutlery. They had fantastic wealth. Ashiris, Mamish, and his house was open to all the Gedolei Torah. He had Chaim Brisker. He had the There might be somebody else. I don't know. Meir Simcha, the Meshech Chochma, right? The Meshech Chochma. They used to stay at his house, and his grandfather used to tell over to his family, or the Chidushei Torah he heard from Meir Simcha. And every summer he used to go to Switzerland to have a vacation, and he left the children, but with a nanny. You know, they had a nanny in those days. And there was one year, 1914, for some reason, nobody knows why, he decided to take the kids to Switzerland. So they're in Switzerland forever, how long they were in Switzerland for the vacation. And vacation's over, and they were going to catch, I don't know whether it was a boat or a train. You know, I don't know, Switzerland is landlocked, and then going up to Minsk. I assume it was to get a train. So he left his hotel, and he went to the train station. He forgot certain paper. He needed some papers, you know, transport papers or documents or whatever. So he had to run back to the hotel. By the time he ran back to the hotel to get the papers, they missed the train. Okay, we'll get the train tomorrow. What's the big deal? So he went back to the hotel. In the meanwhile, that night, they got a telegram from Minsk. Don't come back. The Bolsheviks have taken over. We have to see what's going on. There's a revolution. So he waited a day, and then he got a second telegram. He says the Bolsheviks just confiscated all of your wealth. They took over, and all the rich people are now they're targeted for extermination, targeted for extermination. If you come back, you're dead. And anyway, you have nothing to come back for because they have expropriated everything that you have. He was stuck in Switzerland. He had a couple of candlesticks, and he had a little bit of stock in the hotel that he owned, that he had been staying on. He lived the rest of his life. He said he lived the rest of his life as an ani. He concentrated because he was a Talmid Chacham. What does a Talmid Chacham do when he gets bad luck like that? He sits and learns. He became a Marbitz Torah. He gave shiurim. He told this Ehrenreich's uncle that he had finished Bava Kama 100 times. He had svarim on all Kol Torah Kula. Never once did he say anything about regret, about what a Kosh Baruch Hu had done to him. He accepted it, believed Sholem. Until now, he was on one track, and now he's on another track. This is all from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And this is the Indian of his Mazal. His Mazal, Kodesh Baruch Hu made his Mazal change. He didn't change his Mazal. His Mazal changed. What was his Mazal? His Tafkid, his mission. All of us have a mission in life. This is our job, whether it's a Mazal Prati or a Mazal Klali. Of course, we should daven. We always daven. Do good deeds. The schus, Be'ez Hashem, of Stoka Tatzim. The Gemara says, give a lot of Stoka, do a lot of Chesed, daven a lot for, if you're having hard times. But whatever it is, don't complain. Whatever it is, don't complain. Ein Mazal Yisrael. Yes, it can be changed, because it's all telling in the Kodesh Baruch Hu, but sometimes the Kodesh Baruch Hu, like someone went, there's a famous word, someone went to the Satmar Rebbe, right? And he complained about his Mazal. I davened and nothing happened, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't answer me. Satmar Rebbe said, no, Kodesh Baruch Hu answered you. The answer is no. Be'ez Hashem, we should all be zoicha, that we should all mechazik ourselves, and Be'ez Hashem, we should all be zoicha, that everybody should wish us a good Mazel Tov.
Amen. So that's a fairly new thing. That's an ancient thing we've been saying to each other Mazel Tov.
It's very ancient, I think.
Like in the Gemara, they're saying, I don't see they're saying Mazel Tov to each other, or that's like a fairly newer.
No, it's come on.
You're saying it is ancient?
And we're talking about Mazal Tov. We have a new Oleh Chadash.
Yehuda Halevi. Yehuda Halevi.
Be'ez Hashem, it should be a Gutta Yishuv. Translate. It should be a Gutta Yishuv.
Have a good
Good settlement here. Mazel Tov.
So, Rebbe, if you start fetching, you're on the path of